Someone is poisoning you. Marcus Webb did not move. He was standing at the kitchen island in his Atlanta estate, reading a contract on his phone before his first coffee was even ready, the way he did every single morning. He hadn't heard footsteps, hadn't heard the door open, hadn't heard anything at all, just those 4 words. Quiet, deliberate, and somehow the most frightening thing any human being had ever said to him in 42 years of living. He turned around slowly. 2 boys were standing near the kitchen doorway. And what happened in the next 10 minutes, right there in that kitchen, was either going to save Marcus Webb's life or confirm that it was already too late. Darius was 10 years old, tall for his age, with serious eyes that never quite matched how young he was. The kind of eyes that had seen enough of the world to know it didn't always make sense. His little brother Jalen was 8, sneakers permanently untied no matter how many times their mother said something, always standing slightly behind Darius the way he did whenever something felt bigger than both of them. They were Donna Washington's boys. Donna had worked for Marcus for 6 years. Quietly, reliably, the kind of person who showed up before she was supposed to, stayed past when she needed to, and never once asked for anything she hadn't earned 10 times over. But right now, her sons were not acting like children. They were standing very still. And the look on Darius's face, calm, decided, older than any 10-year-old face should look at 6 in the morning, made something cold move through Marcus's chest that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. "Say it again," Marcus said. "Both of you look at me and say it again." Darius took 1 step forward. Just one. "Someone is poisoning you, Mr. Webb," he said. His voice did not shake. "We saw it. Both of us. Me and Jay." Marcus looked at him for a long moment, and something in him, the part that had survived hostile takeovers and bankruptcy scares and men who smiled while trying to ruin him, understood immediately that these children were not playing. "Tell me everything," Marcus said quietly. "Don't skip a single thing. Start from the beginning." The night before, Darius said he couldn't sleep. He'd gotten up around 12:30 to get water. He knew the back routes through the house well enough to walk them in total darkness. He was 3 steps from the kitchen when he heard something, not a loud sound, a careful one, the kind of sound someone makes when they're trying very hard not to be heard. He stopped at the doorway, and there was Celeste. "Now, before we go any further, you need to understand who Celeste Morgan was to Marcus Webb. She wasn't just his fiancée. She was the first person in 6 years who had made him feel like coming home actually meant something. She remembered the small things, that he liked exactly 1 sugar in his coffee, that he couldn't sleep if there was a light on in the hallway, that the anniversary of his mother's death was harder for him than he ever admitted. She had cried at his mother's funeral in November, like she'd known her personally. He had told 3 different friends she was the best thing that had happened to him in a decade. That is the woman Darius saw standing in the dark kitchen at 12:30 in the morning in a silk robe, with a small white bottle in her hand and a spoon on the counter. Darius said he thought at first maybe she was taking medicine, headache pills, something normal. But then she opened the supplement jar, the glass jar that Marcus's nutritionist had recommended, the one that sat next to the coffee maker every single morning. The one Celeste always placed 2 capsules from next to his coffee, without him even having to ask. She tipped crushed powder into the jar, stirred it slowly, closed the lid, smoothed the surface, put it back in exactly the same position, like she had done it before, like she had done it many times before. "How do you know it wasn't just her own medicine?" Marcus asked. His voice was completely level. "Because she checked her phone first," Darius said, like she was reading instructions, and she looked around the whole kitchen before she started, making sure nobody was there. He paused. "People don't do that for headache pills, Mr. Webb." Marcus sat down on the kitchen stool. His face showed nothing, but inside, something had shifted permanently. "Jay," Marcus turned to the younger boy. "Were you there?" Jalen nodded. He'd woken up when Darius left and followed him out of habit. He hadn't seen everything, but he'd seen Celeste walk out of the kitchen. He'd seen the bottle go back into her robe pocket. And he'd seen her smile to herself as she turned into the hallway. Not a warm smile. Not a tired smile, but a private one. The kind nobody is supposed to see. "She saw me," Darius said, "right before she left." She turned and saw me standing in the doorway. Marcus held his face completely still. Then what happened? She didn't get upset, Darius said slowly. She walked over. She kneeled down. He stopped for a second, like the memory was pressing on something. She said, "Sometimes people keep secrets to protect the ones they love." Silence in the kitchen. And then she went in her purse. Darius continued. "She gave me money. A lot of money, Mr. Webb. She said if I didn't tell anyone, she would make sure my mom's salary got better, that we could move somewhere nicer. She said it was just medicine to help you sleep better, and I shouldn't worry about any of it." Marcus did not respond. But then she looked at Jay. Darius said, and something changed in his voice when he said that part. Something harder. Something that didn't belong on a 10-year-old. She looked at Jay and said she hoped nothing changed about her situation here. She said my mom's job depended on everyone in this house understanding how things work. Marcus closed his eyes for exactly 1 second. She hadn't just bribed a child. She had looked at his little brother, 8 years old, sneakers untied, standing there in the dark, and used him as a threat. When Marcus opened his eyes, there was something on his face that Darius had never seen on an adult before. It wasn't panic. It wasn't anger. It was something quieter than both of those things. Something that had already moved past feeling into deciding. "Why did you still come and tell me?" Marcus asked. "She offered you money. She offered your mother a better life. You had every reason in the world to stay quiet. Why come to me?" Darius and Jalen looked at each other, the kind of look that only brothers share. Then Darius said the thing that Marcus Webb would spend the rest of his life thinking about. "Because our mom always says," Darius told him, "that money you get from hurting someone isn't a blessing. It's a debt." He looked Marcus straight in the eye. "And we don't want that kind of debt." Marcus looked at both of them for a long time. Two boys, standing in a billionaire's kitchen at 6 a.m, with every reason in the world to stay quiet, choosing not to. Think about that for just one moment. Most adults in that situation would have taken the money. These children didn't. "I need you to do something very hard right now," Marcus said quietly. "Can you do that?" "What?" Jalen asked. "I need you to act like you never told me any of this. Here is the part of this story that most people never have to face in their own lives. When someone tells you that a person you love is slowly trying to kill you, there are two kinds of pain. The first is fear, cold and practical, the kind you can manage because you have managed hard things before. That fear fades. The second kind is different. The second kind asks one question, over and over and over. How long? How many mornings had she placed those supplements next to his coffee with a smile and said, "Don't forget these"? How many times had he kissed her on the cheek and said, "Thank you for taking care of him"? How many times had he told someone she was the most thoughtful person he had ever been with? For months. It would turn out 120 mornings. And if those boys had stayed quiet for one more week, just 7 more days, it might have been too late to find out. That was the thing sitting on Marcus Webb's chest when he picked up his phone and called Raymond Cole. Ray had been Marcus's head of security for 11 years. He was 63 years old, built like a man who had been in uncomfortable situations long enough that discomfort had simply become his resting state. He didn't panic. He didn't overtalk. When Marcus called him at 6:47 in the morning and said, "Something is very wrong," Ray said, "I'm already driving," and ended the call. He arrived at the back entrance 24 minutes later. Marcus met him in the study, told him everything. No emotion. The way he would brief a lawyer before a critical hearing, dates, details, sequence, facts. Ray listened without interrupting once. When Marcus finished, Ray was quiet for 4 full seconds. Then he said, "Do you trust the boys?" "Yes," Marcus said. No hesitation. "Why?" "Because no one coached them," Marcus said. "Jalen told me she smiled to herself in the hallway after she left the kitchen. That is not a detail anyone taught him to say. Children don't invent specifics like that." Ray nodded. "First thing, the supplement jar goes to a private lab this morning. I'll handle it personally." He paused. "But Marcus, do you need to know today? Right now? Before the results come back?" Marcus looked at him. "Yes," he said. "I need to see it for myself." Celeste came downstairs at 8:15. White linen shirt. Hair still slightly damp from the shower. Moving to the kitchen the way she always did. unhurried, effortless, filling the space like she'd always belonged in it. "Morning," she said, reaching past Marcus to start the coffee. "You look tired. Sleep okay?" "Not really," Marcus said. She kissed his cheek. "You work too much. Your body is trying to tell you something." Marcus watched her. Every movement, every reach. The way she opened the cabinet. The way she set his mug down on the exact same spot she always placed it. Then she reached for the supplement jar. Opened it. Shook 2 capsules into her palm. Placed them next to his coffee. Automatic. Routine. Natural. Like she had done it 100 mornings. Because she had. "Take those," she said, not even looking at him. Already moving to the refrigerator. Marcus picked up the capsules. Looked at them for a moment. Set them back down. "Eat breakfast with me today," he said. "Take your vitamins with me. Let's just do it together for once." Celeste smiled without turning around. "I already took mine upstairs." "Just one," Marcus said. He held a single capsule up. "Humor me." Something moved through her eyes, very fast. Gone almost as quickly as it appeared. Like a shadow passing under still water. "Marcus, just one capsule," he said. Same tone, same calm. No pressure in his voice. No accusation. If there's nothing wrong with it, it doesn't matter, right? The kitchen went very quiet. Celeste laughed, but it was thin, performed. A sound with the shape of laughter, but none of the warmth. "You're being strange this morning," she said. "Maybe." Marcus replied that he held the capsule out toward her. She did not take it. She said something about needing to call the event caterer, that she was already running behind, and she walked out of the kitchen without looking back. Marcus sat there, the capsule still in his palm, and in that moment, watching her walk away without once reaching for that capsule, Marcus understood something he had been spending 2 hours trying not to understand. The boys were telling the truth. All of it. Every single word. Would you have believed them before that moment? If 2 children came to you with a story like this, about someone you loved, someone who had shown you nothing but kindness for 8 months, would you believe them? Most people wouldn't. He had barely believed them himself. But now he knew. He called Ray from his car, parked at the far end of the driveway behind the oak trees where the house could not see him. Engine off, both hands still on the wheel. "She wouldn't take it," Marcus said. "I figured," Ray said. "She walked out rather than take 1 capsule from a jar she placed next to my coffee every morning for months." Marcus looked out through the windshield at the iron gate and the long driveway and the house that looked exactly the same as it always had. "She is not working alone, Ray. This is not something she designed herself. The level of patience, the timing, the routine of it. Someone advised her. You're thinking money," Ray said. "I'm thinking everything," Marcus said. "The company, the estate, the board structure, all of it." A pause. She does not want a scandal. She wants a funeral that looks like it was coming anyway. Ray was quiet for a moment. "What do you want to do?" Marcus looked at the house. "In business," he said, "when someone has tried to take your company, you don't confront them at the first sign of it. You watch. You gather everything. You find out who else is involved. You let them believe they are winning." His voice was very even. "And then when you know everything, you move." "You're going back in there," Ray said. "Yes," Marcus said. "And she can't see anything different on your face." "She won't." Marcus said he started the engine. He drove back toward the house because the performance had to continue. And Marcus Webb, who had never lost anything he had truly decided to fight for, had just decided. The next 3 days were the hardest thing Marcus Webb had ever done in his life. Harder than the 18 months of building the company from a garage in Decatur. Harder than surviving the hostile takeover at 34. Harder, even, than sitting at his mother's bedside during her last week, because all those battles had been visible. He could see where the threat was coming from. He knew the rules. This was different. This was sitting across from someone at dinner and smiling, talking about wedding flowers and guest lists for a ceremony that was never going to happen, reaching across the table and touching her hand. While knowing what he knew, he played it perfectly. The first evening, he let his tiredness show more than usual. Halfway through dinner, he pressed his hand lightly against his chest, once briefly, like something was bothering him. Celeste put her fork down immediately. "Your chest again?" she asked, her voice filled with exactly the right amount of worry, exactly calibrated, like a performance she had rehearsed many times. "Just tension," Marcus said. "Doctor want me to come in for more tests." And then he watched her face, not the face she showed him. The one underneath IT lasted less than a second, but it was there. Bright, hungry, alive. Not the face of a woman worried about the man she loved. The face of a woman checking something off a schedule. And in that moment, the last thin layer, maybe I'm wrong about this, dissolved completely. Meanwhile, Darius Washington was doing something that required more courage than most adults Marcus knew would have been capable. He was acting completely normal. Every morning, every afternoon, sitting at the kitchen table doing homework, saying yes, ma'am, when Celeste spoke to him, accepting every small gift she quietly left near his school bag, a $20 bill here, a gift card there. She was investing in his silence, building it up like compound interest. And Darius took every single thing she gave him and put it in a shoebox under his bed, untouched. Every bill, every item, evidence. He'd told Jalen one night when they were supposed to be asleep. Jalen had looked at him. "How do you know about evidence?" "Crime shows," Darius said. And despite everything they were carrying, despite the weight of what they were holding inside the house every single day, they both almost laughed. Almost. But on the third day, something happened that changed the atmosphere in the house. Celeste came into the kitchen while Jalen was at the table pretending to read. She sat down near him, and she spoke very quietly. The soft, careful voice she used when she wanted something to sound warm but mean something else entirely. She said she hoped things stayed stable for their family, that their mother had worked so hard for so long to get to where she was, that it would be a real shame if anything disrupted such a good arrangement. She wasn't looking at Darius when she said it. She was looking at Jalen, 8 years old, book in his hands, pretending not to listen. And Jalen pressed his fingers so hard into the spine of that book that his knuckles went pale. That night, both boys knocked on Marcus's study door. Darius told him what Celeste had said, and Marcus felt something cold move through him that had nothing to do with the pills and his supplements. She was threatening children, repeatedly, casually, like it was just logistics. Like these boys were variables in a plan that she expected to manage without any friction. "You are both doing something incredibly hard," Marcus told them, "and I need you to keep going a little longer. Can you?" Darius nodded. 10 years old, nodding like someone twice his age, Jalen said, "How much longer?" Marcus looked at him carefully. "Not long," he said. "I promise you both. Not long." 2 days later, Ray arrived to the back entrance with a manila folder and a look on his face that Marcus had never seen on him before. Ray Cole was not a man who shook easily. He had been doing this work for 30 years. He had found embezzlers, blackmailers, corporate spies. He had uncovered evidence of things that would have made most people physically ill, but he looked shaken right now. "Lab results first," Ray said, sitting down across the desk. The supplement jar tested positive for digoxin. He said it plainly, like ripping off a bandage. "It's a cardiac medication. In therapeutic doses. It regulates heart rhythm. In high, sustained doses," he paused, "it causes cardiac arrest. And in any standard autopsy, it presents as natural heart failure, stress-induced. Very believable in a man your age who works the hours you work." Marcus said nothing. "Small doses," Ray continued, "carefully calibrated. Enough to cause fatigue, chest pressure, irregular rhythm, the kind of symptoms that make a man go to his doctor and hear the words, 'We need to run more tests.' Not enough to kill you in a week." He looked at Marcus. "But enough, sustained over 6 to 8 months, to produce a fatal cardiac event that not one doctor in this country would question." A long silence sat in the room. Outside the study window, the garden was bright and ordinary in the late morning sun. "How long has she been doing this?" Marcus asked. Ray hesitated. "Just slightly. Based on what I found in her financial records," Ray said, "at least 4 months." "For months." Marcus reached for a glass of water on his desk and drank it slowly. 0.4 months, 120 mornings of good morning, and "Don't forget your supplements," and a smile that he had believed completely. 120 times she had placed those capsules next to his coffee. 120 times he had trusted her enough not to question it. And if Darius hadn't gotten up for water that night, if he had just turned over and gone back to sleep like any other child, 120 would become 150 and then it would have been too late. There's more, Ray said. Marcus looked up. She took out a life insurance policy on you 10 weeks ago. Ray said, $8 million. Sole beneficiary, her. He slid a document across the desk. And there is a company, Harwood Capital Advisors. Shell company, no real address, no employees on record. But money has been moving through it for 5 months. Large transfers, going into accounts connected to her. He paused. Someone is funding her, Marcus. Someone with access to real capital. Who owns Harwood? Marcus asked. Already found out. Ray said. He slid a second page across the desk. Just a name. 2 words. Trevor Holt. Marcus sat back in his chair very slowly. Trevor Holt, his college roommate. The man who had been there on the first night Marcus had the idea that eventually became his company. Sitting in a dorm room at 2 a.m, both of them eating ramen. And Marcus had said, what if we built something that actually lasted? Trevor had been his co-founder for the first 3 years. He had been the best man at Marcus's first serious relationship. He had borrowed money from Marcus when his first solo venture failed, and Marcus had given it without conditions. They had been brothers before they were business partners. Then they had disagreed about direction. Marcus wanted to build something long-term. Trevor wanted fast returns, fast exits, fast money. The buyout had been professionally handled. The handshake at the end had looked genuine. None of it had been genuine. Trevor had shaken his hand, said no hard feelings, brother, smiled the smile of someone who meant absolutely none of that, and walked away waiting for the right moment to come back. He knows the company better than almost anyone alive, Marcus said quietly. He knows the share structure, the board dynamics, the insurance landscape, the exact legal sequence of what happens to control of my assets if I die before I'm married, and exactly what changes the moment I am. He looked at the paper. He didn't just advise her. He designed this, the whole thing, the timing, the method, the marriage, the supplements, all of it. Ray nodded. It's not a crime of passion, Marcus said. It's a business plan. A well-funded, carefully timed business plan, Ray said. And Marcus, he leaned forward slightly. They have been working on this for at least 6 months, which means this started before she said yes to the engagement. It possibly started before she said yes to the first date. The room was very quiet. Marcus stared at the name on the page. He thought about the night Trevor had called to congratulate him on the engagement. The warmth in his voice. The way he'd said, she sounds perfect for you, man. I'm happy for you. And Marcus had felt in that moment that maybe the old friendship was still there somewhere underneath everything. It had never come back. It had just changed its shape. Some betrayals are random, Marcus said quietly. A stranger who wants what you have. You can handle that. He looked at the name again. This one had a history, and that makes it worse in a way I don't fully have words for. Ray didn't say anything T understood. That afternoon, Celeste went into the garden to make a phone call. Marcus watched from the upstairs window. She was animated, laughing at something the person on the other end said. The face of a woman who believed, completely and without doubt, that everything was going exactly the way she had planned. Marcus watched her for a full minute. Then he went downstairs, slipped out the side door, and moved quietly along the line of tall hedges until he could hear her voice. I told you. He went to the doctor. They think it's his heart. He's tired all the time. He barely finishes his food. It's working. A pause while the person on the other end spoke. No, not yet. We can't rush it. It has to look natural. Stress, heart failure. He's 42. He works constantly. It's completely believable. Another pause. I know about the insurance. I'm not stupid. But the company is worth 50 times that. Once we're married, I have control of the transition. That's the real money. Just make sure the paperwork is ready when it happens. I don't want delays. She ended the call and stood there for a moment, looking across the garden, completely peaceful. Marcus stepped back into the shadow of the hedges before she turned. He walked back into the house through the side door. He stood in the hallway for 30 seconds without moving, and then he went back to his study and called Ray. She's not working alone, and they're already planning the aftermath, Marcus said. The company transition, the accounts, all of it. This is not about the insurance money. This is about everything I built. Ray was quiet for a moment. Then we don't just need to catch her poisoning you, Ray said. We need to catch the whole plan. Both of them. Together. On record. Marcus looked out the study window at the garden where she was still standing. Good, he said quietly, because I don't just want to survive this. He paused. I want to destroy completely. If this story is touching something in you right now, please take 1 second to like this video and leave a comment telling us where in the world you are watching from. It means more than you know. And make sure you're subscribed so you never miss what comes next. That night, Marcus opened the bottom drawer of his desk and took out a black leather notebook. The kind he kept for things too important to trust at any screen. He wrote one name at the top of a blank page. Celeste Morgan. Then underneath it, everything. Digoxin compound. Supplement jar. Sustained dosage, minimum 4 months. Life insurance policy, 8 million sole beneficiary. Filed 10 weeks ago. Shell company, Harwood Capital Advisors. Owner confirmed, Trevor Holt. Garden phone call, transition plan, accounts. Paperwork ready when it happens. Witnesses, Darius Washington, age 10. Jalen Washington, age 8. Bribery, cash and gifts. Threat against mother's employment. Second threat made directly in front of minor child. He put the pen down. Read the page, picked the pen back up, and added one final line. This is not just an attempt on my life. This is a planned transfer of everything I built, executed by someone I trusted and someone I once called a brother. He closed the notebook. Then he picked up his phone and called Patricia Hendricks. Patricia had been his corporate attorney for 13 years. She was 58, with reading glasses she never wore on her face and always wore pushed up on her head, and the sharpest legal mind Marcus had ever encountered. She had seen a lot of things working for Marcus Webb. But when he told her what he needed tonight, she was quiet for a moment before she spoke. You want to amend the will, she said. Tonight, if possible, Marcus said. Tell me exactly what you want. If I die, Marcus said, Celeste does not receive control of the company. Not temporarily, not partially, not in any form. Everything goes into a protected trust. You and Ray co-manage it. No share transfers, no asset sales, no board restructuring for a minimum of 12 months. He paused. And I need a sealed folder in my safe. If anything happens to me that is not clearly and verifiably accidental, that folder goes directly to federal law enforcement, not local police. Federal. Patricia was quiet. Marcus, she said carefully, how much danger are you in right now? Marcus looked out the window. The garden was dark and still. Celeste's bedroom light was on upstairs. The sound of ordinary life happening directly over the top of something extraordinary. Enough, he said, that I need everything done before this weekend. I'll have the documents ready by 9 tomorrow morning, Patricia said. Thank you, Pat. Marcus. A pause. Please be very careful. He set the phone down and sat there in the dark study for a long time, thinking about what Darius had said in the kitchen that first morning. Money you get from hurting someone isn't a blessing. It's a debt. A 10-year-old boy had said that. And that same 10-year-old boy, right now, was sleeping 3 doors down the hall, carrying a secret that could get his mother fired and his family displaced, and choosing to carry it anyway, because his mother had raised him to know the difference between what was easy and what was right. Marcus Webb, who had built a company from nothing and never let himself be moved by much, felt something shift in his chest that had nothing to do with digoxin. He had been surrounded by people like Darius and Jalen his whole life. He had just never been paying close enough attention. The next morning, everything had to look exactly the same. Sunlight through the tall kitchen windows, the coffee machine running, the smell of toast. Marcus walked downstairs deliberately slowly. He held the banister on the way down. When he reached the kitchen, he sat at the island and pressed 2 fingers lightly against his chest, just once, briefly, like something was quietly aching. Celeste turned from the counter immediately. You look pale, she said, and she was beside him in 3 steps. Did you sleep at all? Woke up at 3? Marcus said. Chest felt heavy. Couldn't get back down. You need to move up that appointment, she said for the third time in 4 days. Her concern was perfect. Immaculate. Rehearsed until it looked completely unrehearsed. This can't wait until next week. I know, Marcus said. You're probably right. Celeste poured orange juice. She reached into her purse and brought out the small pill bottle. Easy, unhurried, like it was the most natural part of her morning routine. She looked at Darius, who was at the table with a textbook open in front of him. Come here, she said gently. I'll show you. Every morning, 2 of these in his juice. They dissolve fast. He won't even notice. Darius walked over. His face was completely blank. His hands were steady. Even though Marcus knew, his heart was probably running faster than it had ever run in his life. Yes, ma'am, Darius said that he took the pills. He dropped them into the glass. They fizzed slightly and were gone. Good, Celeste said, warm and encouraging. See how easy that is? This is how we take care of him. Marcus sat at the table, playing the role of a tired man who wasn't paying close attention. Eyes slightly in focus, hand resting heavy on the counter, the performance of someone whose body was starting to fail them. But inside, every single second was sharp and clear. Celeste set the glass in front of him. Drink, she said softly. It'll help. Marcus reached for the glass, then stopped. Can you grab my phone? He asked, looking up at her. I think I left it on the sofa in the living room. She hesitated, half a second, no more, then nodded. Of course. Drink while I get it. She walked out of the kitchen. Marcus stood up immediately, walked to the sink, poured the juice, filled the glass again from a bottle of clean juice in the refrigerator, sat back down 0.11 seconds. He looked at Darius. Darius's eyes were wide. Marcus gave the smallest nod. It's done. Celeste came back with the phone. Here. Her eyes moved immediately to the glass. Did you drink it? Marcus picked up a glass and drank it in 3 slow swallows. Set it down empty. Celeste watched the movement of his throat. And then, just barely, just slightly, her shoulders released a small, involuntary exhale. The relief of a woman whose plan was still on schedule, not the relief of someone who loved him, the relief of someone who needed him to keep taking those pills for a few more weeks. Later that afternoon, Marcus would tell Darius what he had noticed, and Darius, 10 years old, would look at him very seriously and say, I saw it too. 2 days later, Ray came back with something new. He placed a USB drive on the desk and a printed photograph beside it. She has been using a burner phone. Ray said, 11 calls this week that don't appear on her personal records. He placed a photograph in front of Marcus. And I found security footage from 3 weeks ago, while you were in New York for the tech conference. Marcus looked at the photograph. Trevor Holt, sitting in Marcus's garden, casual jacket, laughing at something, in Marcus's own home while Marcus was in another state. He was inside this property. Marcus said quietly, at least twice that I can confirm. Ray said, the blind spots on the garden cameras. He knows exactly where the blind spots are. Marcus said, he helped me design the security system 12 years ago. He set the photograph down. He knows this property better than most of the people who work here. Ray leaned forward. Marcus, he has been inside your home. He knows your schedule. He has direct access through someone who lives here and loves him. This is no longer theoretical. He paused. You need to move faster than feels comfortable. Marcus looked at the photograph for a long moment, and something left his face. The last remaining fragment of maybe I'm reading this wrong. The thing that had been quietly hanging on since the first morning, finally let go. What was left was focus. Pure and cold and completely clear. I want to invite Trevor Holt to dinner, Marcus said. Ray stared at him. Say that again. This weekend, Marcus said, both of them, at my dining room table. He stood up. I'm going to tell Celeste that I've been thinking about the future, that if something happens to me, I don't want her to be alone navigating the company, that I want her to have someone she can lean on, someone I trust. He looked at Ray. I'm going to suggest Trevor, and I'm going to let her make the call herself. Ray was quiet for a long moment. She won't be able to stop herself, Marcus said. Because to her, this is the opportunity she's been building toward. Getting both of them in the same room, same table, same plan moving forward. He looked at the photograph one last time. What she does not know is that you and 2 federal agents are going to be in the next room, and every word spoken at that table is going to be on record. Ray looked at him. You've been planning this for longer than today. Ray said, since the moment I watched her face when I told her my heart was irregular. Marcus said, I knew then. He paused. I just need to make sure that when it ended completely. No cracks, no arguments, no room to walk away. That night, the boys knocked on his study door. Both of them, closed together in the doorway the way they stood, whenever something was bigger than either of them alone. Marcus pulled his chair out from behind the desk and sat in front of them, not behind anything, just face to face. This weekend, he told them. It ends. Darius nodded. Jalen said, Is she going to jail? Yes, Marcus said. Both of them. Darius reached into the front pocket of his hoodie and pulled out a folded piece of paper. He unfolded it carefully and slid it across to Marcus that IT was a drawing, done in pencil, careful, deliberate, a man's face, gray at the temples, strong jaw, the particular posture of someone who was used to being the most important person in any room he entered. Marcus stared at the drawing. Trevor Holt. Unmistakably. Every detail correct. A 10-year-old boy had sketched his co-conspirator from memory and kept the drawing for 3 weeks. Quietly, without telling anyone, because some part of him had understood even then that it might matter someday. Marcus looked up at Darius. When did you draw this? The day after I saw him in the garden. Darius said, I didn't know who he was, but I thought I should remember his face, in case it mattered. Marcus held the drawing carefully. Can I keep this? He asked. Darius nodded. Marcus folded it and set on the desk. Then he looked at both of them for a long moment. I want to tell you something, he said, and I need you to really hear me. They waited. What you've done, it is a small thing, Marcus said. I know maybe it looks small from where you're standing. Big house, a man with money. Seems like he would have figured it out on his own eventually. He shook his head. He wouldn't have. Not in time. Because when you trust someone completely, you stop looking. You stop questioning. And when you stop looking, he paused. Someone very patient and very careful can walk right past every defense you have. He looked at Jalen. She tried to buy you, Marcus said. You were 8 years old. She was an adult in a house with more money than you'd seen in your life. She put your mother's job on the table and told you to stay quiet. He let that sit for a second. Most adults in that situation would have taken the money, Jay. You know that, right? Jalen looked at his hands. I was really scared, he said. I know, Marcus said, and you did the right thing anyway. He looked at him steadily. Do you know what that's called? Jalen looked up. Courage, Marcus said. That's exactly what that is. Not the absence of fear. Doing what's right even when the fear is real. Jalen was quiet. Then, very quietly, Is it really? Yeah, Marcus said. That's exactly what it is. Saturday evening. The dining room was set with the good dishes, cream with gold edges, the one Celeste had chosen for the engagement party, candles lit, wine already breathing, something from the kitchen that smelled expensive. Everything arranged to look like a celebration dinner. Under the center of the dining table, taped behind a support beam, a recording device the size of a matchbook. In the security room down the hallway, Ray sat in front of 3 monitors. Beside him sat 2 agents from the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. They had reviewed everything. The lab results, the financial records, the insurance documents, the security footage of Trevor in the garden, Patricia's documentation of the shell company, the phone records from the burner. They had enough for charges already, but they were waiting for one more thing. Their voices, saying out loud at INA room with audio running. Trevor Holt arrived at 7:15. He walked in the way men like him always walked into rooms they intended to eventually own. Like, they had been invited but would have come in anyway. He was 54. Silver hair. An expensive jacket worn casually. The way people wear things when they need you to notice the cost without them having to point it out. He shook Marcus's hand and smiled the smile of a man who believed he had already won and was simply waiting for the paperwork. "Marcus," he said, "I have to tell you, when Celeste called, I was genuinely surprised. Happy, but surprised. It's been way too long. It really has." Marcus said. Celeste came down the stairs in a dark burgundy dress, warm and glowing, kissing Trevor on both cheeks like a woman greeting an old family friend rather than the man she'd been on the phone with 48 hours ago planning a timeline for her fiancé's death. They sat at the table. 8 talked about business, a development project in Midtown, a charity gala the following month, a restaurant that had just opened downtown that Trevor recommended. Normal things, civilized things, the kind of conversation that happens at dining tables all over the world every night of the week. And this was the last moment that it looked like that .3 candles burning. 2 people who had spent 6 months planning a man's death, and the man himself, sitting at the head of his own table, completely calm. 3 more minutes of normal. Then Marcus put his fork down. "I want to be direct about something," Marcus said. The table went quiet. "My health is not good," Marcus said. "My heart. The doctors are genuinely concerned." He looked between Celeste and Trevor, his voice measured and slightly vulnerable, the precise register of a man who had decided to trust the people in front of him. "It's made me think about who is actually in my corner, who I can count on when things get hard." He looked at Trevor. "We had our history, the buyout, the way things ended. I've carried that, and it doesn't feel right anymore, not now, when I'm looking at my own health and thinking clearly about what I'm leaving behind." Trevor leaned forward slightly. "I'd want someone around who actually understands the architecture of what I built," Marcus said. "Someone who could help Celeste navigate the company, the accounts, the board, if something happens to me." He looked at Trevor directly. "Someone like you." Trevor was completely still for one full second. Then, "That means a great deal. I'm genuinely honored you'd think of me." "Of course," Marcus said. "Who else would I trust?" He held the words in the air for exactly 3 seconds, and then he reached under the table and pressed a button. From the speakers installed the night before, Celeste's voice filled the dining room. Clear, unmistakable, her own. "He drank it this morning. The girl is doing exactly what we need. He's getting weaker. A few more doses, and we won't have to wait much longer." Then a man's voice. "Once he's gone, the company is under your control. We liquidate what we need, move the shares, and we're done in 90 days. Then Celeste's voice again. "The boys aren't a problem. They like money. They won't say anything." The dining room was absolutely silent. Marcus looked at Celeste, then at Trevor. Neither of them moved. Trevor recovered first, because men like Trevor always try to recover first. "Marcus, I don't know what you think, Trevor." One word, flat as a door closing. Trevor stopped. Celeste was on her feet. Her face had gone white. The burgundy dress, the candlelight, the good dishes, all of it framing the expression of a woman whose entire carefully constructed world had just collapsed in the sound of her own voice. "Marcus." Her voice was different now. The real one, stripped of everything rehearsed. "You don't understand how this started. In the beginning, I genuinely... When did the beginning end?" Marcus asked. She didn't answer. The hallway door opened. Ray walked in first. Behind him, 2 federal agents moved into the dining room with the practiced calm of people who had done this many times. Celeste Morgan, Trevor Holt. The agent's voice was completely level. "You are both under arrest on federal charges of conspiracy to commit murder, attempted poisoning, and financial fraud." Trevor did not resist. He straightened his jacket, looked at Marcus with an expression that was almost admiring. "You were always smarter than I gave you credit for," Trevor said. "No," Marcus said. "I was exactly as smart as you thought I was." He looked at him evenly. "I just had better people around me." Celeste's eyes moved past Marcus, found Darius and Jalen standing in the hallway doorway, small and still and quiet, watching everything, and something broke in her face. Not grief, not guilt, fury. "You." The word came out like something scorched. "Both of you. Do you have any idea what you just threw away? Your mother's life could have been completely different. Your lives could have... Hey! Marcus's voice came out hard and immediate, and he stepped between Celeste and the boys without a single moment of hesitation. You don't speak to them, he said. His voice was completely even, absolutely final. Not now, not ever again. He held her gaze and did not look away. They are children. They told the truth. And everything that happens to you from this moment forward is a direct result of what you chose to do, not what they chose to say. Celeste stared at him. Then something gave way at her face, the last layer of performance dropping, and what came out from underneath, it was something cold and honest and ugly. You were a lonely man with too much money, she said. Do you know how easy you were? The long nights, the stress, the way you just wanted someone to see you. I gave you what you wanted, and you were grateful for every second of it. You think you're different from every other rich man who built something and then couldn't protect it. Marcus looked at her for a long moment. You're right, he said quietly. I was lonely, and you used that, and I will spend a long time thinking about what that means. He paused. But I'm alive, and you're under arrest. And in the end, he shook his head, that's the only part that matters tonight. The agents moved them toward the door, AT the threshold. Celeste looked back one last time. Marcus held her gaze and did not look away. Not angry, not broken, not performing, just steady. And when the front door closed and her car pulled out of the driveway, the house went quiet in a way it had not been quiet in months. Not the quiet of secrets pressing against the walls. The quiet of something finally over. Marcus turned around. Darius and Jalen were still in the hallway, both of them very still. It's done, Marcus said gently. Jalen said in a very small voice. She said we ruined everything. She's right, Marcus said. He walked toward them. And there's a difference between ruining someone's plan to commit murder and ruining something that deserved to be ruined. He looked at them both. You didn't set a trap. You told the truth. She set her own trap. You just made sure someone was watching when she walked into it. Darius looked at the closed front door. I wanted to like her, he said quietly. At the beginning, she was actually kind of nice. She helped me with homework once. I know, Marcus said. It's strange, Darius said, that someone can seem real and not be real at the same time. Yeah, Marcus said. He shook his head slowly. I didn't fully understand that until tonight. Jalen looked up. Are you okay, Mr. Webb? He asked. Just that. Simple and direct. The way 8-year-olds ask things before they've learned to dress their questions up. Marcus thought about the answer honestly. No, he said. Not tonight. He looked at both of them. But I will be, because the people I'm standing next to right now are real. He paused. And that's more than I had yesterday. He knocked softly on the staff kitchen door. Donna opened it, looking the way mothers look when something has happened that they don't have all the details of yet, but their instincts are already running every alarm they have. Marcus sat down at her small table and told her everything. He watched her face as he talked. The confusion, the growing horror, the exact moment she understood what Celeste had offered her sons, and the exact moment she understood that her sons, her boys, had said no. When he finished, Donna was very still. Then she looked at Darius and Jalen, who were standing in the doorway behind Marcus. She didn't say anything. She just opened her arms, and they came. She held them both for a long time without speaking. When she finally looked up at Marcus over their heads, her eyes were full. I raised them to do right, she said. Her voice was rough and careful. But I never knew. I didn't think they would ever have to do it like this. Neither did they, Marcus said, but they did it anyway. The morning after the arrests, the house felt different. Not lighter exactly. Not healed. Just honest. Marcus cooked his own breakfast. Scrambled eggs, standing at the stove, thinking about nothing except the eggs. And he realized that was the first morning in 4 months that he had stood in his own kitchen without his mind running quiet threat assessments on every surface around him. When Darius wandered in still half asleep and stopped dead in the doorway, seeing Marcus at the stove, he said, You cook? I used to, Marcus said, before I got successful enough to forget basic things. He put a plate in front of Darius. They ate together in silence for a minute. Then Darius said, Can I ask you something personal? Yeah, Marcus said, "Were you scared?" Darius asked, "Like inside, even when you didn't show it?" "Yes," Marcus said, "very scared." "Of her, of being wrong," Marcus said, "of thinking I had built something real and finding out it was built on the wrong foundation." He looked at Darius. "When you trust someone completely, you stop looking. And when you stop looking, someone patient enough can walk through every defense you have." He paused. The fear was never her. The fear was me, that I had missed something everyone else could see. Darius was quiet for a moment. "That's kind of what it felt like with the money she gave me," Darius said. "Like she was making staying quiet seem the same as protecting my mom. Like the wrong thing and the right thing were pointing in the same direction. She was very good at that," Marcus said, "making things look like something they weren't. Making fear and love and money all feel like the same thing." "Yeah," Darius said at a pause. "But she got one thing completely wrong," Marcus said. Darius looked up. "She thought everyone makes decisions the same way she does." Marcus said, "She thought given enough money and enough fear, any person will eventually choose the easy thing. That is how people like her think." He shook his head. "She didn't account for someone who was taught differently." Darius looked at his plate. "My mom says," he started, then almost smiled. "She says a lot of things. But one of them is, the easiest way to know what someone is really made of is to offer them something they really need and watch what they choose." Marcus looked at him. "Your mother," Marcus said, "is a very wise person." "I know," Darius said simply. That afternoon, all four of them sat together in the living room. Donna perched on the edge of the sofa, looking like someone waiting to be told they'd done something wrong. Marcus noticed it. He had been noticing a lot of things lately that he hadn't been noticing before. "I want to talk about your future," he said. Donna immediately began. "You don't need to do anything. We're just grateful for the work. We don't want Donna." Marcus said, and waited until she stopped. "Your sons told me the truth when a woman with significant resources and a carefully laid plan spent 3 weeks trying to make sure they wouldn't. They did that because of how you raised them." He let that land. "That is not something I do nothing about." He told her about the house. Fully paid. Her name on the deed. A safe neighborhood near a good school. No conditions attached. He told her about the education fund for both boys. Covered fully through college. Whatever they chose to do. He told her about a new employment arrangement. Real compensation. Reasonable hours. No more being one person doing the work of 3. Donna stared at him. "You can't," she started. "A house is just money," Marcus said. "And money is something I have. What your sons gave me is something money cannot buy." He looked at Darius and Jalen. "You told the truth when lie would have been easier and more profitable. You protected someone when you had nothing to gain from it and everything to lose." He shook his head. "I'm not paying you for that. You can't pay someone for that. I'm making sure you have a foundation as solid as the one you just helped me protect." Jalen looked at his mother, trying not to cry, and said, with complete matter-of-fact calm, "She's gonna cry." And Marcus, for the first time in days, almost laughed. It felt like something coming back to life. Donna did cry, quietly, pressing her hand against her mouth, try to hold herself together. Darius looked at Marcus. "Why are you really doing this?" he asked. Not suspicious, just direct, the way he always was. "Because I almost lost everything," Marcus said. "Not to a market crash, not to a lawsuit, not to a hostile takeover or a bad deal or any of the things I spent 20 years preparing for." He looked at the boy. "I almost lost it because I trusted someone who had spent 8 months making herself look trustworthy. And I stopped paying attention. And the only reason I'm still here," he paused, "is because 2 people with every reason in the world to stay quiet decided that doing the right thing mattered more than doing the easy thing." He looked at them both. "You can't let that go unreturned." A long quiet settled over the room. Then Donna said very softly, "You're a good man, Mr. Webb." Marcus shook his head slowly. "I'm a man who needed to be reminded what good people look like," he said. "That's different." 3 months later. Marcus Webb stood at the floor-to-ceiling window on the 31st floor and watched Atlanta move below him. The trial of Celeste Morgan and Trevor Holt was proceeding. The evidence was as Ray had said the night he'd reviewed the security footage. As clear as it gets. Their defense attorneys were doing what defense attorneys do, filing motions, buying time, looking for angles, but there were no angles. Marcus had made sure that. He had also spent 3 months rebuilding differently. New board provisions, new legal architecture, a security structure with no blind spots and no access granted on trust alone. But more than any of that, he had spent 3 months paying attention to people differently, to the woman on the ground floor security desk who'd worked nights for 9 years, to the young analyst on the 3rd floor who'd flagged a minor discrepancy 6 months ago that turned out to be nothing, but had flagged it anyway quietly because he thought Marcus should know, the people who did the right thing without an audience, without a reward on the table, without anyone watching. He'd always been surrounded by them. He just hadn't always been looking down on a Saturday afternoon. He drove to a neighborhood 20 minutes from his office. Modest houses, real front yards, kids' bikes on sidewalks, the sound of a basketball hitting a driveway somewhere down the block. He parked in front of a house with a dark blue door and a small porch with 2 wooden chairs on it. Before he reached the porch, the door opened. Jalen stood there in a basketball jersey and shorts, sneakers untied. "You're early," Jalen said. Marcus nodded at the shoes. "I'll do it later," Jalen said. Marcus smiled. Some things didn't change. Inside, the house smelled like whatever Donna had on the stove and like paint that was still slightly new, like a place that was still becoming itself, in the way good places do at the beginning. Darius was at the kitchen table, textbook open, headphones around his neck. "History?" Marcus asked. "How'd you know?" Darius said. "You have that face." "I'm better at science," Darius said. "History matters," Marcus said. "Sitting down. It tells you what people are capable of. Both directions." Darius thought about that. "That's actually a good point," he said. They ate together, all 4 of them, when Donna came in from the back. The table was small, nothing like the long dining table in Marcus's house. But the feeling around it was something Marcus hadn't felt at his own table in years. Like everyone sitting at it was exactly who they appeared to be. A teasome point. Darius put his fork down. "Mr. Webb," he said, "can I ask you something kind of personal?" "Yeah," Marcus said. "Do you miss her?" Darius asked. The table went quiet. Marcus took the question seriously, the way Darius always asked things seriously. "I miss who I thought she was," Marcus said finally. "I don't know if that counts as missing her exactly, or missing an idea of something that was never actually there." He looked at the table. "Does that make sense?" "Kind of like when my best friend moved to Houston in 4th grade. Darius said. "I didn't miss him that much after a while, but I miss having a friend like that." Marcus looked at him. "Yeah," he said, "exactly like that." Jalen, who had been quietly listening while pretending to eat, looked up. She was mean underneath. Jalen said, "You could feel it if you were paying attention." "You're right," Marcus said. "You could." "Was it the money?" Jalen asked. "That made her like that? Or was she always like that and the money just, he searched for it? Let it out." Marcus said. "Yeah." Marcus thought about it. "I think some people carry something hard inside them for a long time," he said, "and they build a very convincing surface over it. And sometimes you can't see what's underneath until something removes the surface." He paused. What removed it for her was getting close enough to a very large amount of money to stop pretending it didn't matter more to her than everything else. Jalen nodded slowly. Then he looked at Marcus with a particular directness that only 8-year-olds have, the kind that doesn't apologize for itself. "We had less money than her," Jalen said, "and we still made a different choice." The table went quiet, not an uncomfortable quiet, the kind that happens when something true has just been said and everyone present knows it. "Yes," Marcus said. He looked at both boys. "And that," he said, "is the thing I think about most. Not the arrest, not the trial, not the company's structure or the legal proceedings or any of it." He shook his head slowly. "I think about 2 boys in a kitchen at 6 in the morning, deciding what kind of people they were going to be, and choosing right." He paused. "When it would have been so easy, so understandable, to choose differently." Darius looked away, the way he always did when a compliment landed somewhere real. "It wasn't that deep," he said. "It was exactly that deep," Marcus said. "And you know it." Jalen nodded vigorously in agreement. Darius almost smiled. When Marcus left that evening, Donna walked him to the porch. Before he stepped down the path, she said his name. He turned. "They talk about you," she said. "Not in a... It's not like hero worship or anything like that." She thought for a second. "Darius told me you said courage doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do the right thing even when you are." She looked at Marcus. He wrote it down in his notebook on the first page. Marcus didn't say anything for a moment. "I don't know if you know what it means," Donna said carefully. "For a boy his age to hear something like that from someone who looks like him and who he can see is telling the truth." She paused. "It means something big. The kind of big that stays." Marcus nodded slowly. "Donna," he said, "thank you for raising them the way you did." She shook her head. "They raise themselves half the time. I was just working." "You were teaching," he said, "even when you thought you were just working. Every word you ever said about money that comes from hurting people, every time you said it, they were listening. And one morning, in a kitchen, it mattered." He paused. "That's not nothing. That's everything." She looked away. Trying not to cry again, he walked to his car and he sat in it for a moment before starting the engine, looking at the house with the blue door and the 2 porch chairs and the light in the window and the sound of Jalen laughing about something inside. A few months ago, he had almost died in a house full of expensive things and perfectly rehearsed lies. Now he was sitting on a quiet street outside a small house where the people inside had almost nothing except honesty and had chosen it anyway. Over money, over safety, over the easier life that was sitting right there on the table in front of him. He started the engine, he pulled away slowly, and he thought about those 4 words. The one spoken by 2 boys with untied shoes in the kitchen at 6 in the morning. "Someone is poisoning you," said quietly, said directly, said when the easier choice, the safer choice, the more profitable choice, was to say nothing at all. 4 words that cost him something real to say, and that he would carry for the rest of his life. Some people spend their whole lives building wealth, building companies, building walls of success high enough to believe they're safe behind them. But Marcus Webb now understood something those walls had never been able to teach him. The most valuable thing a person can possess is not a share price or a legal structure or an $8 million insurance policy in the right named. It is the clarity in one single moment, when that moment counts, to know who in your life is real. And sometimes the person who saves your life is not the lawyer or the bodyguard or the business partner. Sometimes it is just the person who refuses, quietly at great personal cost, without any guarantee that it will be worth it, to sell their silence, because their mother told them once that money you get from hurting someone is not a blessing, it is a debt, and they believed her, and so they came to find him, before it was too late. This story carries a quiet but powerful lesson. The most dangerous betrayal is never the kind that arrives from a stranger. It arrives from someone who has learned your routines, your habits, your vulnerabilities, your loneliness, and decided to use every single one of them. But this story also reminds us of something the world sometimes works very hard to make us forget. Our age does not belong to the wealthy or the educated or the powerful. It cannot be bought. It cannot be distributed. And it cannot be taken. Sometimes the bravest people in the room are the ones with the least to gain and the most to lose. The real lesson is this: do not confuse access with loyalty. Do not confuse performance with love. And never, not for a single moment, underestimate what a person is capable when they have been raised to know the difference between what is easy and what is right. Because one morning, without any warning at all, the entire course of your life might depend on whether the people around you know that difference. And choose it, the way 2 boys did, before it was too late. This video is a work of fiction created with the assistance of artificial intelligence. All characters, events, and situations are not real and do not represent any actual people or true stories. The content is intended for storytelling and emotional illustration.